Welcome back to Two Doctors Homestead. My name's Daniel, and I want to talk about prepping, not just how to prepare, why we prepare, and how do you know when you're done? How do you know when you're just prepared, you're ready, right? You don't need to get any more buckets of rice and beans. You don't need to get any more cases of MREs. You're done, you're prepared. Let's just sit back, play some darts, and wait for it all to fall apart, right? How do you know when you get to that point? So I want to dig in on that because something I've been contemplating a little bit lately, right? So first of all, why? Why prepare? Why do you want to be a prepper? I'm a second generation prepper, been prepping my whole life. My dad was a prepper, survivalist back in the day, he still is. There's a possibility, right? Be it man-made or natural disaster, natural occurrence, or maybe aliens, but we'll stick with man-made or natural, that some event may occur in your lifetime that will break the back of civilization, right? Shtf, shit hit the fan. Teotihuacan, the end of the world as we know it, right? That there is a possibility, whether it's localized, whether it's the entire world, the end of the world for you, right? And we've looked at the mathematical side of that, and there's some great articles on it. And it's something like a 30% chance in your lifetime of some major societal collapse at any given point using historical information. So the possibility is real, right? Prepping is whether or not you choose to prepare for it. And it doesn't just have to be the end of the world. It could be natural disasters. It could be what we're seeing right now, right? As horrible as it is, natural disasters happen. We've been seeing them all year. How prepared are you? And part of that I want to get into is not just having a bug out bag, which is certainly a good idea, but having an alternative location. And that's called networking and making friends and having a network of places, other places you can go. So what would it look like, right? What would natural disaster, societal collapse, why prepare? How would it happen if there was an event, right? Called it a blackout. We like to talk about EMP. We like to talk about blackout. They say if there was a blackout, there would only about 90% of the population would survive that kind of an event. So you're looking at 90% of the population, right? Perishing is what we're saying. Likely starved to death, dehydration, exposure to the elements, violence, right? So if the blackout happened, if the EMP happened, or really any event, right? You look at the Patriots, you look at those book series, they talk about financial collapse leading to societal collapse. There's a lot of roads that lead back to the same thing, financial collapse. Yellowstone super volcano, major pandemic, EMP, nuclear war. There's a lot of roads that sort of lead to the same thing, which is there won't be any food at the grocery store. There won't be any gas at the gas station. You may not have power for your phone, and even if you do, there won't be anybody to call an emergency, right? So you are your own first responder. You are your own only responder. So that's the idea behind what is an SHTF. What is a survival situation that you might want to prepare for? So we've talked about food before, and I mentioned this on a video before. How much food do you need, right? How much food is enough stashed away as a prepper that you can say, we're good, we're going to rotate, right? Rotate our stock, but I really don't need more food stashed away. We're good forever, right? And the idea would be that you have enough food that you can hit the point if you had to and just produce your own food to become fully self-sufficient. Now, some percentage of the population is self-sufficient right now, producing all their own food, and hats off to you. That is a lot of work. It takes a lot of land, right, to produce your own food, and we'll get into that. But if you haven't produced your own food, but you have this idea that you're going to be in that 10% that survives the first year of, say, an EMP or a major grid down or any kind of SHTF situation, you have to have food stashed away, right, to get past the initial great starvation that would unfortunately happen. But then at some point, you're going to have to acquire more food, right? So there's two lines there, is how much food and when can you start acquiring more food. If you look at the Great Depression, we hunted deer to almost extinction. So the idea that SHTF, there's no food in the grocery store, big grid down, anything like that happens, I'm going to go hunt, right? So is everybody. So in something like that, there's no guarantee you're going to be able to hunt or procure food in that way, hunting, fishing, trapping, any of that. Now, if you're an area that's completely remote and there aren't a lot of people there, maybe you can. Maybe you can still hunt and fish and forage and all that kind of stuff. If you're anywhere near civilization and there's a million people in your zip code, they're also going to be trying to hunt and fish and forage. And they're probably going to be knocking on each other's doors saying, do you have any food, right? The moment there's no food in the grocery store, people still have to eat. No food at McDonald's, no DoorDash. They're going to start knocking on people's doors and saying, hey, you guys got any food in there, right? So SHTF, collapse, right? You have to be able to defend yourself. You have to be able to defend your supplies if you happen to have supplies stashed away. But how many supplies do you need? And I wanted to kind of lean into that a little bit. We got this seed vault. You can get packets of seeds. You get heirloom seeds, right? These are heirlooms. It's probably good for 3-4 years. It depends, right? These don't last forever. So if you're a seed guy, maybe every couple years, get another pack. They're not super expensive. You don't need a ton. This says greater than 85% germination for 2022. So I guess I've had this for a little while. The germination rate goes down, which means you might have 30 seeds in a pack. And the older the seeds are, depending on how you store them, the germination goes down to the point that it's sort of worthless. But let's assume these weren't a couple years out of date. You plant your seeds. We do a lot of gardening here. Now, don't expect to learn how to garden when you're starving, right? It is not necessarily easy. You have to figure out what plants grow in your area. That's a big part of it, right? How to garden, what grows where you're at, what's your soil like. It takes time to improve the soil to maybe grow the things you want to grow. It is a skill. It's not, you're not just going to throw some seeds on the ground and you're good to go. But let's assume you've spent the time, develop the skill that you know how to garden. Pack of seeds, even 35 packs of seeds. You plant these all out. You've got your first year. I'm not going to go too deep in the math. That's not going to feed you for very long, right? We've done the math on it. Even a pack of seeds, average germination, average everything, you might end up with a couple days worth of food, right? That's not going to survive you. That's not going to be enough for you to survive till the next harvest. You're going to need more food than that. So the math we've done before is if you take your first harvest and you seed save, and the next harvest, which might be an entire another year, if you have the land, you have the space, and 90% of the population are gone, so space probably isn't an issue. You have the skills, you have the tools, you have the soil. You seed save, you have the seeds. By the second harvest, you can probably be self-sufficient on food. And there's a lot of ifs and ifs and ifs. But if we're saying, I'm a prepper, I want to be prepared for anything, I want to survive, I want to be in that 10% that makes it past the first year in a major, situation, societal collapse situation, need enough food, right? You're going to need enough food stashed away to get past a year or two, right? So if you're talking about how much food do you need to have stashed as a prepper, week is good, 30 days is good, a year or two is sort of that good enough to get you to the point that you're going to be able to grow your own food. Now, I'm not saying everyone needs to have 2 years of food stashed away or even a year's worth of food stashed away. But if you've been prepping a long time and you're like, okay, when am I done? When am I good enough? When do I have enough food stashed away? Yeah, it could be even a year or two, right? Depending on where you're at, depending on the situation, depend. That might be your goal, right? How do you prep that? We've done videos on it. We've done the Prepper Pantry series. Look at stuff like rice and beans, right? If you're using a pound or two a day of rice is not expensive. It does take up space, right? You need space to store all this stuff. You're going to want to rotate. There's a lot behind it that I'm not going to burn all out in just one video, but that's your food situation. So how much food is enough? When are you done prepping food? Probably 2 years, right? I'm going to say probably 2 years. You've got to plant, you've got to harvest, you've got to seed save, then you've got to plant again, you've got to harvest again, and a lot of things can go wrong in that. So is that a year? Potentially a year and a half, 2 years if you want to be, hey, I'm done prepping. I'm good. I could be self-sufficient, right? The world can end and we're on our island and we're going to keep going. That's probably 2 years worth of food stashed away. Maybe that's your stretch prepper goal. You want to get past localized events, smaller events. It's good to have It's good to have more than a day's worth of food, right? We're out here in Texas. We just had a big freeze. Every time we have a big freeze, and this was no exception, people are stacked up at the grocery store the day before the winter storm hits, getting dumb stuff, filling up carts with milk and stuff. So people are not prepared. A lot of people are not prepared. Hopefully, if you're watching these videos, if you've been following the channel, watch prepper channels, you're at least somewhat to advanced level of preparedness. If you don't have anything, try to get to a week, try to get to a month. Can you go 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 2 years? So it doesn't have to be expensive, right? We're not necessarily saying you gotta have 2 years of freeze-dried food or 2 years of MREs, though I did find a good local supply of MREs. I've been stacking some of those just because MREs are fun. Everybody loves MREs, right? So that's the food side. If we talk about water, you need water. You need water to survive. We've done math on that. Government recommendations, standard survival recommendations, 1 gallon per person per day. You could say 2 gallons per person per day. I think, and we did the math, I'm not even going to spend the time to look it up. Average American uses like between 50 and 100 gallons of water per day. So going from, say, 100 gallons of water per day to 1 gallon of water per day is going to be a shock, right? We burn a ton of water, whether we're taking showers, washing our clothes, washing our dishes, washing our hands. Every time that faucet goes on, we're burning water, and we probably don't even think about it because we get pretty much unlimited. In the U.S., depending on where you're at, you pretty much have unlimited water. You can leave that faucet on all day if you're that kind of person, right? Don't do it. So going from that to 1 gallon of water or less per day is a shock, but that's the minimum recommended to survive. If you've ever been camping, which I've done a lot, I've spent a lot of time camping in various activities that require camping, sleeping outside, carrying your stuff, hiking, backpacking. You're going to be more used to it, like brushing your teeth with a cup and not. When the moment you have to carry all of your water that you're going to consume and use, it changes it versus I've got the tap, I can just turn it on, and I've got unlimited water. So you should have water stored. We've said that, and really the water bottles are the cheapest way to go. If you're looking at long term, right, things like lakes, rivers, streams that run year round are great. If you don't have that, well is great too, right? If you don't have that, think about water collection. I know where I'm at, we get 30 inches of water a year. I mentioned this before. 1 inch of water on a 10 by 10 roof will fill up a 50-gallon barrel. It's about 65 gallons of water. So you look at 30 inches of water a year. If all I had was 1 barrel and 1 roof, that would fill it up 30 times. So 30 times 50, that's a lot of water. That would be more than enough water for 1 person. So think about water collection. Do the research now. Google what's average rainfall where I live. What's the minimum, the lowest level of rainfall where I live? What's the max? Start looking at that, right? If you want to survive, you want to be prepared for anything, survive the apocalypse, last man standing, which why not, right? What else are we going to do with our day? Water reclamation, water catchment, those kind of things. Something to look at, something to think about now. As I mentioned before, some people may already be fully self-sufficient, and good for you. One side I would lean on that is, do you have a network? Do you have a community? Right? We're rural where we're at. The further you go, the more rural you are. That has issues, right? Even where we're at, trying to get an ambulance takes time. If you're an hour outside of town and something happens, how long does it take to get an ambulance? Now, if we're talking Shtf, great, you're further away, you're going to have fewer people coming in. But what if you need that community? What if there's some kind of a disaster, a tornado, a hurricane, an earthquake, a fire? Depends on where you're at, what the risk is, and your house is burnt down, right? All your preps are gone, house is burnt down. Where do you go? And that's having a network. Where I'm at, I've got friends also prepared 6 miles away, 45 miles away, right? So if I had to bug out, if I had to go somewhere, if my house was burnt down, if we had to abandon it, got places to go and other people that are also prepared. So you kind of have that cross bug out, right? But it's about having a community. I think people are the most important prep is people having a community, having people you can rely on, having a diverse skill set. So even if you think, hey, I have everything, I'm good, 100% self-sufficient, do you have a backup, right? And that's a prepper term too, is one, do you have a backup plan just in case something happens, you had to abandon your property, whether it's a gang of marauders or a wildfire, right? Anything could happen that all of a sudden you're starting from zero. So it's better to make those decisions now, make those connections now. And that's something we're trying to do. We're always making connections, building up a group. If you've been following us on Instagram, been doing a lot of IDPA shooting, International Defensive Pistol Association. That's a lot of fun. Been enjoying IDPA, trying to do more competitive shooting. Good for defensive skills and fun, and we're meeting people. We're building the group. So any of the new guys to the group, watch the videos. It's been great. We're having fun. We've been playing a lot of darts. Got the dartboard back here. Trying to have a little fun with the room, hanging up some signs and stuff. So hope that helps out. Just trying to share some thoughts, share some information. As I said, I've been contemplating the question myself a bit is, when are you done prepping, right? At what point do you have enough stuff? Do you not need any more stuff? Preppers tend to accumulate. If you're trying to be prepared, you got to have stuff. You got to have skills too, right? You can't overlook the skills. When are you done? And I'm wondering that myself. When are you done prepping? When do you have enough? You're good to go. Sit back, hang out, have a beer, wait for it all to fall apart, right? Go to the Winchester. That was the movie. So it's my thoughts for today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching the channel. Thank you for liking and subscribing. We're not getting a lot of action lately, and that's okay. That happens too, right? I know I'm not putting it all into it. Used to do 4 videos a week, haven't been hitting it as hard. That happens. That's life, right? But we appreciate everyone that's here, that's watching the videos, sticking around, making comments. So as always, thank you for watching, and we appreciate you.